Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video we're talking about the Barbers. Not hair. More specifically, we're talking about Miranda Barbour. Not a barber. This is quite an interesting story, shocking at parts to be fair, but also one, you can take with a pinch of salt. Remember that guy? What I mean by that is Miranda Barbour has done some things and said some things which are quite outlandish, to be sure. But is there any truth to them? Because you're going to be a bit like, nah, yeah. Well, we'll get into it. So, how about we do? Now listen here, I'll start telling the story from when the world was introduced to Miranda Barbour, but first we gotta start with a guy named Troy LaFerrara of Pennsylvania, and Troy's body was found on the 12th of November, 2013.
We responded to an incident at the rear of the 200 block of Catalyst Avenue. At this point we have a deceased person. He is under investigation. District Attorney's Office has been notified. We've requested the assistance of the state police. Circumstances of death at this point are questionable.
42-year-old Troy was of Fort Trevorton, less than 20 minutes from where his body was discovered in Sunbury. He had been married for 2 years to his girlfriend of 8. No children. His body was found behind a house on a quiet residential street, and it was deemed suspect from the get-go. Mainly because he was stabbed to shit. There was a cord on his body, like he'd been bound or something, and there was blood everywhere. So, yeah, that'll do it. The investigation, into who did this to Troy then began, beginning with his mobile phone, which was found on him. Having a go through that, it seemed like Troy hadn't covered his tracks very well and was up to stuff, he never would be again. He was interested in dating websites, Craigslist, man seeking woman, all the good stuff. You know it. Stuff that he wouldn't have, wanted his wife Colleen to discover, even though the police did. Like immediately. And so this led them to messages that were from the day he was murdered, the 11th of November, the day before he was found. He had been in contact with a woman named Miranda Barbour. She was a mother. She was married, and she was 18 years old, having recently moved to Pennsylvania. She was brought in to be interviewed by the police 3 weeks after Troy was killed.
The reason you're here is there's a guy who was murdered, and his name is Troy LaFerrara.
You entered his ad on Craigslist, right?
Yes.
What did his ad say?
It implied that you would be paid to go out with this person. That's what the ad implied.
Did it say sexual? Was it sexually explicit? Or was it going to dinner? That would be spelled out in a Craigslist ad.
It was, yes, it was, but
Okay.
I didn't go into it intending to do that.
So you were going to meet up with this guy, make a couple of bucks.
Yes.
Okay. Were you on the phone with him at all, or talking to him? Messaging him?
We were messaging back and forth, yes.
Okay.
We were just supposed to meet up at Denny's, but it never happened.
Meeting never happened.
Yes.
Being that your phone number is his last call.
Mm-hmm.
She said, yeah, sure, I was yapping away with him on Craigslist, sending him messages and all that kind of stuff. But she never met him. She never met him that night. And she had no idea who did this to Troy.
That puts you pretty close. So we need to be able to prove that you did it or that you didn't do it. So I'm going to ask you right now a very basic, very simple question.
Okay.
That you need to answer either yes or no to.
Okay.
Were you involved in, or do you have any knowledge of the death of that guy, the death of Troy?
No.
We didn't just tonight decide, you know what, I want to go talk to Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened, and some information has come.
I understand that, but
Do you understand
my
that?
goal right now is to get back to my daughter.
Our goal is to find person who killed him.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're the last person on his phone.
Actually, Miranda, we gotta take your phone, put it in evidence, and then get a search warrant to go through.
That's not fair to me at all.
That's what we have to do.
I have the right to walk out of here with all of my belongings, which I'm going to do.
Not with your phone. We're gonna take your phone.
I'm very offended right now.
I'm sorry.
I
You
have
understand?
I have time. I need numbers. I need my phone numbers.
You understand we have a job to do.
I did not kill that man. I've never met that man in my life before.
I hope not.
I just got married. You guys are coming in my life, questioning me. I'm very offended.
Yeah, see, her being very upset by the fact that the police might be interested in her, as, she was one of the last people to speak to Troy, messaging each other and so forth. Her reaction of getting extremely defensive, maybe she thought that would just, they'd bow down. Didn't work. They just raised eyebrows, more.
Do you understand why we're questioning you?
Do you understand why I feel the way that I feel?
No. Do you understand why
No,
we're questioning you?
I don't.
So
I never met up with him.
So your phone number being the last...
Yes, but I never met up with this man.
Understandable, but do you think that maybe is something we need to check into?
I want to go home to my baby who is screaming her head off for me.
We're taking your phone before you
Don't
go.
touch
Okay.
me. I demand away right now.
All right.
Don't touch me.
Stop.
No.
Stop.
No.
I have to get physical.
Stop. I didn't do anything. Fuck all of this. Oh my God.
She stormed out, just incredulous that the sneaky cops could think that little old her would have anything to do with what happened to Troy. Listen here. Do guilty people get upset? Don't think so. That same night, Miranda's husband of 40 whole days, was brought in too. Elytte Barbour was 22 years old, stepfather of Miranda's baby.
All right. Elytte. Is it Elytte or?
It's Elliot.
Elliot.
Yes.
Okay, Barbour, correct? All right. Well, the reason we're here.
Okay.
All right. Your wife, her number is the last phone number on our victim's cell phone before he dies.
Oh. Okay.
All right.
All right.
And we're trying to figure out why.
All right. You're hoping I can help?
Yep.
Okay.
What do you know?
All right. I guess full honesty here, I've never heard of him, and I don't know anything about that. But the only thing I know is that what my wife does is meet with someone who's willing to just pay you some money to have a nice conversation and sit down. Doesn't provide sex, anything other than companionship, because that's what they want. And if she was the last person he called, then that means that he was a potential client.
What is it she does?
I don't know if you've ever seen the type of movies to where someone goes to a whore. No, I'm saying she's a whore, but that's a comparison. A guy goes to a whore and he's totally about to have sex with her. Then he breaks down, and then the whole scene is him crying. Oh, I hate my life. I love my wife so much, but she's just being a bitch. And then she's just filing her nails, listening to him, and then she gets paid for the companionship, for listening, for being an open ear. And that's basically what it's about.
All right. I'm gonna let you know a little something.
Okay.
She was meeting up with our victim.
When? This period?
The night of your birthday.
Really? Well, that's fucked up. Okay. Well, it looks like I'm gonna have a long discussion when I get home.
Should I suspect your wife?
No.
He was very believable, very trustworthy, really. Yeah. His wife Miranda just really loves giving those delightful conversations. Nothing more than just, a chin wag. Come on. It's illegal. And so the police let them both go that night. However, Miranda returned 7 hours later and just admitted to the darn thing. She wanted to talk. She told police it was her who had stabbed Troy to death. But it was in self-defense.
So obviously there's something on your mind that you'd like to share with us.
Most definitely.
Okay. Would you like to tell me about that a little bit?
I arranged to meet up with him, and I pulled in the mall. I saw him. He got in my car. Everything seemed fine, and as soon as I put the car in park, everything just completely flipped upside down. I didn't know what to do. He just attacked me.
What was he doing to you?
One hand was on my throat, while the other hand was touching me down there.
What I'm getting from what you're talking is basically he's being really aggressive, groping you.
Yes. And I do have 3 knives in my car. I usually carry one on me, and I just grabbed it.
What happened after you took the knife?
I stabbed him once, and it didn't do anything. And I stabbed him again, and it didn't do anything. It was still being continued. There was nothing that changed. There's just blood. Like a horror scene in my car.
Yep, you heard that right. They agreed to meet up that night, when Troy started, forcing himself on her. Luckily, Miranda had a trusty car knife, never get in a car without one, and so she was able to defend herself by just stabbing the shit out of him over 20 times. After which, her and Elliot got cleaning supplies, went to Red Robin, and then she took Elliot to a strip club for his birthday. Get some non-wife titties in your face. Now, the police weren't too fond of this explanation, and therefore, just weren't willing to purchase it. The investigation into Miranda and Elliot continued. And, well, as you probably guessed, self-defense me ho. 3 days after Miranda was arrested, they decided to start over with Elliot. This time he was very matter-of-fact about what happened and told them it wasn't a therapy session, it wasn't self-defense.
Let's start that night. That night, November 11th, 2013. It's your birthday.
It was my birthday.
Okay. Did you have a good birthday?
Yes, I did. As fucked up as it is.
Yeah.
This guy was not looking for just companionship. He was looking for sex. She misleadingly sold him sex through texts. But that was never the intention. The whole intention was to go. Now, yes, I knew she was going to meet him. Yes, I was with her. Yes, I did take part. I'm in the back seat, covered up by a blanket. And she's in the front. He gets in the car, probably around 8. So I pop up with that cord that y'all found on the body. That was me.
Where do you have that cable at? Just right around his body? Or around the throat? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, good. It was pretty good.
The same.
In between the headpiece and the bottom was where I tried to angle it up underneath it. I put my feet up against the back and pulled as hard as I could. She said she stabbed him in the groin. I think she said she stabbed him in the leg, and the majority was to the chest. She did say she stabbed him in the neck, and it went through. And I look, I'm leaning forward, and there's just blood everywhere. And she's like, oh my god, there's blood everywhere, I don't know what to do.
Something you just wanted to do, and you guys decided to do, and you did it together.
Yeah. Nothing more to, if that's the answer to why as well. Just cause.
So you just decided you're going to kill
We just decided that we were going to kill somebody. We had no reason, no anything else other than that.
Okay. Alright, I'm going to step out real quick. Alright?
Okay, come back with Sean, you're the one that comes back.
I'm coming back. I'm the only one coming back.
You want this?
Yep. Thanks, Bob.
Cool.
He hid under a blanket in the back seat, and then when she said the code word, "Did you see the stars tonight?" he wrapped a cord around Troy's neck. Miranda then went buck wild with a knife. They had both planned on killing somebody for quite a while. It was on the to-do list, they'll get around to it. When old Troy walked into their lives. So, the story is already strange. We got a very young couple who killed somebody for just the sake of killing somebody, really. We haven't even gotten to the strange part yet. So where are Miranda and Elytte Barbour? It's a rhetorical question. Miranda Camille Dean was born on the 14th of December 1994 in North Pole, Alaska, which, while not literally on the North Pole, might as fucking well be. She grew up with her parents and one older sister. Her upbringing, she was sexually abused by an uncle at a very young age. And in fact, in 1998, Miranda's uncle, Richard Fernandez, pled guilty to 2 counts of sexual abuse of a minor and got 14 years. And it turned out that Miranda's grandfather had abused his own family and children, Then, at age 13, Miranda claims she joined some kind of scary, satanic, murderous gang in Alaska. Whoa, guys, this is getting too scary. I might have to stop recording. Eventually, she became a high-ranking member of that gang, got romantically involved with the leader named Forrest, who she would say he ruled her. And then she would also say she was sexually abused by the mostly male gang. Miranda was someone who would have various mental health issues throughout her young life. Elliot, too, was someone who heard voices from a young age, had hallucinations, and too, was troubled. Kinda screwing him over here, we won't go on too much about him. Miranda got pregnant in 2010, at 16 years old. She didn't want to stay with the baby daddy. She left and would meet Elliot 8 months later, when she moved to Coates, North Carolina, to start again. Funnily enough, Miranda met Elliot through Elliot's girlfriend at the time, who was also pregnant. And Elliot, too, like Miranda, was also very interested in spooky Satanism, though it was less like this and more like this. It's kind of fucking disappointing. Both Miranda and Elliot battled, with drug abuse, alcohol, weed, eventually meth, crack, black tar, heroin. They both wanted to kick this and start afresh. They first went to Dunn, North Carolina, where they got married, a whole 15 minutes away from Coates, and from there, they moved to Pennsylvania to live with a friend. And it was 2 months deep in jail that Miranda had a confession to make to a local reporter. See, that night, Miranda had considered letting Troy live until he said the wrong thing, and that meant he had to go, and he would be far from the first. Miranda Barbour was a serial killer, we're told.
Very nice to meet you after all this time, and this is your hour, so whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I guess I kind of just have to trust that you write what I say and don't twist it.
I promise you that won't happen.
Well, I turned 12. My entire life flipped upside down when I turned 12.
Why? What happened at 12?
I got into a gang, started doing drugs, skipped school all the time, and the gang that I was in, it was based around Satanism. I always felt like there was something inside of me, and I know it's bad, and I know that one day it will be completely out of control. This is not the first time.
Are you saying that you have killed before?
Yes.
How many times, Miranda? If you had to take a guess, what would you say?
If I had to take a guess, I know that when I hit 22, I stopped counting.
She had bodies all over the states, at least 22. Alaska, Texas, Virginia, Florida, California. You name it, it was probably her stomping ground. She may have even killed you. from 2008 to 2013. She was a killer until she was caught. It all started when she joined that satanic cult in Alaska. She could pinpoint bodies on a map and would be happy to tell the police all about them. She was bad to the bone. She did say, however, that Troy was Elliot's first. She would tell stories of severed limbs being dumped near Anchorage, a man being murdered by a pier in Florida, body parts being thrown from a vehicle in North Carolina. Mostly the murders were done in Alaska. But she made a point to say, these are all bad guys. I'm really doing everybody a favor here. They were all people who did bad things and didn't deserve to live. So it's all good. For example, according to her, when she met Troy, she lied and she told him she was 16. To which he said, okay, if he had left, she would have let him go. Mostly her victims were men, but Miranda would say, there was one woman in Alaska who Miranda heard was prostituting children, so of course she made the list, came to a sticky end, courtesy of our teen demon. This was big news, obviously, and the FBI took over the case.
Killer now claims to have murdered 22 people across the country.
Tonight in Northumberland County with a story that continues to capture national attention.
Miranda now claims she was part of a satanic cult and killed more than 20 people.
Miranda, did you really kill 22 people?
Story of the alleged Craigslist thrill killers in Northumberland County is getting even more bizarre. One of the suspects accused of stabbing a man to death in Sunbury told a newspaper reporter she's killed before.
She's a petite, baby-faced teen, now claiming to be one of the country's deadliest serial killers.
Miranda Barbour n'a que 19 ans. Elle a été arrêtée et écrouée pour un meurtre commis aux États-Unis en Pennsylvanie en novembre.
She never hesitated once. She never gave the impression of it was a rehearsal. I said, Miranda, as you sit here, do you have any remorse whatsoever? And she said, none.
So what, drove her to commit all of these murders? The fact that she had an abusive childhood? The satanic gang she joined? Or maybe, there really just is nothing to do in Alaska. You know what? Nuh-uh. All wrong. The reason she became a serial killer? How about Dark Souls?
She said the first murder that she participated in was done with an associate. But she stopped murdering. She has it in her soul, in her heart, that she wanted this to come out so she would not do it anymore. We do know that she has an affinity for the fantasy game called Dark Soul, which is a very dark, death-laden video game on PlayStation and other kind of video type things where there's a lot of killing involved.
Well, it can be, traumatic enough, I'll give it that.
You ain't fucking kidding me!
They were both, Satanists, and Elliot, he truly believed that Miranda was possessed by a demon they called Super Miranda. Really, guys, that's the best you can do? Ugh, fine. So they believed that Super Miranda was in control.
We're going to be speaking about the murders that you have information on that Miranda Barbour, your wife, may have been involved with, correct?
Yeah. I heard she said 22 plus bodies since she was 13. She told me her first body was when she was 12.
Do you believe this?
Do I believe her?
You, Elliot,
I believe her.
Us in the room.
Yes.
You believe.
100%. I fully believe she killed these people. No part of me doubts that. I always told everybody I thought Miranda was possessed. And I don't know if y'all are religious, but I am. And that shit exists. And she is possessed.
What is it? In your word, is what?
A demon.
And he believed whole hog that, Super Miranda, the Reckoning, she was a super serial killer, a natural born killer. No messing around. The real deal. Actually, maybe they were both possessed by, just cringy demons. So like I said, this was a big story, and this all needed to be investigated and taken pretty seriously. In September 2014, Miranda and Elliot went on trial for the murder of Troy LaFerrara, one which they never showed remorse for. the death penalty was on the cards. They both pled guilty to second-degree murder, also to the charges of aggravated assault, robbery, and possession of an instrument of crime, and so the death penalty was now off the cards. They both got life without the possibility of parole. And so what about all the other murders Miranda committed? Well, what murders? The FBI and the police, in the jurisdictions that she said these murders were committed, investigated and found no evidence backing up her claims of being a bad bitch. They're all right here, I swear!
It's an odd story, actually, because usually when somebody says they did something like this, you can find a little bit more evidence.
Well, anything is possible, Brooke, and of course it's conceivable that she's a serial killer, but I'll tell you why I doubt it. First of all, this would be a very rare case.
Officials in Alaska and Pennsylvania note that so far in their states, they have not been able to verify any of Barbour's claims.
False confessors look a lot like serial killers because they share the same motivation. They want to feel powerful and in charge and like big shots.
Police looked into several unsolved homicides, disappearances, and while there was some, in areas she had lived in, there are some everywhere. The prosecutor in the Troy LaFerrara case didn't believe her. Miranda's dad didn't believe her. They just say, it was all for attention. Following investigations, many of Miranda's claims were dismissed by the authorities. Miranda's sister would also be quick to claim that Miranda loved Dexter, the show, and so forth. So, well, there don't you have it. Though Miranda, she'd be quick to say, "Shut up, no, I don't like the show." Both Miranda and Elliot clearly suffered from severe mental health issues. Miranda, especially, she had a very troubled childhood, and she didn't really ever have much of a chance growing up in the way she did, surrounded by the people she was. All this led to her becoming what her family would say was a manipulative liar, and had been from a young age. Like the Satanic Gang, one time she said she became pregnant, and they tied her to a bed and gave her a homemade abortion. When she told her mother took her to a doctor, and, well, there was no signs of that. Miranda was on medications for depression, ADHD, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder, and was in and out of mental health institutions her entire life. And her entire life wasn't very long by the time she was finally arrested at age 19. She would say, the father of her baby was a member of that Satanic Gang, and he had been murdered shortly after, she became pregnant. That guy just called her mother when Miranda was arrested and was asking, "What's the story with my baby?" Miranda would say, that she wanted to be arrested because she was tired of killing. She would later say she wanted to be arrested because she wanted her daughter to be raised by someone else. That she thought she'd be a terrible influence, and she just wanted to be removed from society, so adoption was, off the cards. And I mean, they did do a shite job of covering it up. So there's that, although Elliot had no idea that Miranda intentionally wanted to be arrested so that, she didn't want to be a member of society, it just didn't cut the mustard for her. And so finally, her claims about killing all across America.
Okay, Miranda, let me ask you, did you kill 22 people? Now.
Shanae. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you as always, in the next one maybe? Probably? Yeah, real soon? Alright, sounds good. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.